Are you tired of losing in ranked matches? Do you want to be good enough to carry your team when playing different roles? Don't worry, Kazuki Official is here to get you covered. Hi guys, Kazuki here, and in this video we are going to talk about the 5 mistakes we should avoid in each role. As you guys know, this video has redeem codes and I want to congratulate the winners of our previous video. Thank you for participating. And similarly, this video will have hidden codes too. Find it from the video and redeem it at kazukiofficialstore.com and your diamonds will be delivered instantly. So let's jump back to our topic and start with our first role, which is roaming. This is ideally the most underrated role in our beloved mlbb. Most players tend to ignore playing tanks because they lack damage and are mostly useless in 1 versus 1 scenario. From this we can have an idea of our first mistake. Going in alone or solo laning. Tanks are most effective in providing backup to squishy backlines. They can protect, initiate, as well as provide the most crucial vision for the team, which can help you in predicting enemy movements. But I see many players, for example, an Atlas is going in after seeing 3-4 enemies piled up and using fatal links without watching his back whether his team is there to finish them off or not. So tanks should generally try not to farm and initiate unnecessary, as they cannot solo kill and are not so farm dependent, as this is a 5 versus 5 game. With this comes our second mistake. Leaving the backline vulnerable. Most of the tanks tend to initiate a team fight without confirming where the enemy assassin or damage dealers are. This makes the squishy backline vulnerable to enemy damage dealers, putting them at risk and ultimately their team's farm. If your team's damage dealers are having a hard time, then you are going to face a hard time too. So try to protect those squishy heroes. Not providing vision. Vision is the most crucial thing which a tank can provide by checking bushes or waiting in certain bushes to provide a good view of the minimap. This can be helpful in predicting enemy rotations and confirming their locations. I see most players just ignoring the bushes and staying with either their MM or Mage. This gives the enemy a great chance to launch a surprise attack or even outnumbered you in lanes. So tanks should provide as much as vision to their team to make the win happen. Timing. Most tanks I see either try to initiate or try to protect all the time. Knowing the right balance is the key to being a good player. For example, a Franco trying to pull the enemy when your damage dealer is low and the enemy is chasing. We get that your freestyle hooks are good, but at what cost? The expense of a teammate is always a bad trade, as it leaves a man shortage. Afraid of dying. When playing tank, you need to put your huge ego aside and don't be afraid to die for others. You can help your junglers secure objectives, help your team tower dive, and come out unscathed if you can provide a good backup. Helping your team will ultimately make them trust you and they will try to help you too. It's a win-win situation. Next will be the jungling role. Opposite to the tanks, a jungler role is to try to secure objectives and help the team with kills or assassinations and farming faster than your enemy. I see many junglers making these mistakes, like not prioritizing neutral objectives. A jungler main role is to secure objectives like the turtle, load, turrets and enemy. But most players tend to ignore this and be farming jungle creeps or even trying to clear the lanes in the early phase of the game. This is so wrong as you are the only player with retribution on your team, so you should try to help your team in securing objectives. Use of retribution. Retribution is the greatest asset of a jungler as it can help you secure your buffs as well as steal enemy buffs and objectives. But I see many players using the retribution either too early or not at all. This spell has such a low cooldown that if timed correctly, you can secure every creep you want. Try to last hit objectives with retreat and know which type of retreat suits your hero the best. Flame retribution is recommended for heroes with high burst damage such as Ling, Haya, Granger, as it increases their damage even more. Whereas utility junglers like Fredrin or Balman can opt for ice or damage retribution. Not prioritizing farm. You have failed as a jungler if the enemy jungler has more gold and experience than you. Prioritizing the farm in the early stage of the game, prioritizing turrets in the mid game, or trying to take Lord or the turtle whenever given the chance is a must for good jungler. Not helping team. I see many junglers just focusing on their buffs for the whole duration of the game and not helping allies at all. I feel like these are the most inexperienced one as they have not understood the first basic of the game. That is, it's a 5 versus 5 game. Not knowing your hero. I see many players take meta junglers after seeing them open in the draft and performing very poorly. The jungling role is meant to be played with your best hero or the hero you know fairly well. Knowing your hero strengths and weaknesses is a must for every jungler out there. Moving on to the next role, that is fighter. These are very versatile heroes as they can provide a good damage output as well as are very durable in most cases. The first mistake you should avoid is going in alone. I see many fighters going in 1 versus 3, 1 versus 4 or 1 versus 5 situations and dying ultimately. When you die as an experienced laner, you give precious towers which makes the map more open for the enemy and makes you more vulnerable to ganks and ultimately makes your team too. Try avoiding going in solo versus team when playing as an experienced laner. Not prioritizing turrets. I see many players who don't push their lanes and try to join team fights. For example, if you are in a situation where the enemy team is ganking and you are too late to join the skirmish, it's far more worth it if you push your lane rather than trying to join a team fight late and ending up in a 1 versus 3 situation. Not rotating. As an experienced laner, you are expected to dive the back line in team fights. But if you stick to your lane and don't rotate the whole time, it will make your team in losing situation in team fights. Knowing the art of when to push and when to support the team is a must for the experienced laner. Clearing your jungle creeps. Clearing your jungle creeps will let your jungler more difficult to progress. This will lead your jungler to lose against the enemy jungler. This applies only in the early stage of the game. However, you can clear the jungle on one condition, and that is when you are invading, or simply you can try to clear the enemy jungle. Not building correct items. Most fighters are situational heroes and should most of the time opt for 1 or 2 defense items as it makes their chances of surviving much higher. But I see many players making full damage build or building the same items repeatedly. Knowing how to build your fighter is a must-have skills in your arsenal. Up next is our next role, that is Marksman. Marksmen are the only characters in the game who have the most range and late damage in the game. They can either make or break a game. And the first mistake we have is not watching the minimap. As a gold laner, you are expected to carry your team in the later stages of the game. I see many players not paying attention to the minimap and getting ganked. As a gold laner, playing safe and getting your core items are your top priority. So having good map awareness helps you to farm safely and undisturbed. Not utilizing range. Gold laners have the benefit of dealing damage from a safer distance. I see many gold laners who get out of position and die even before the team fight happens. You should avoid getting too close to your enemies and be mindful of your surroundings. You have the highest range, so utilize it well. Not building properly. I see many gold laners going full offensive builds. You are the highest damage dealers, but you always forget you are squishy too. Try to build some situational items like the Wind of Nature, Immortality and Athena. Depending on your enemy, try to outsmart your enemy as they will be behind you the whole game. Getting items like steel leg plates in early can help you survive any surprise ganks. Trying to solo. As a gold laner, you need to survive longer than your enemy to out-damage them. Ask your tank to provide backup and help in the early stages of the game. Not rotating in the late game. As you are the fastest turret destroyer, you need to avoid sticking to a lane and rotate and help the team in taking objectives as much as possible. Heroes like Claude and Beatrix can also cut lanes fast to help their team without losing their minions. And our last role is Mages. These are the best heroes to counter your enemies with very high damage output and generally have very useful skill sets. A good mage can make you live in fear of them. The most general mistakes of mid laners are going solo. As a mid laner, you are most of the time guaranteed to be very squishy hero, which makes it very easy to kill. If you solo your lane, then your chances of dying increase very significantly. Try to help your tank with rotation and ask him to help you too. Not protecting turrets. I have seen many mid laners who will be with the tank the whole time and disregard their lane. The first mid tower is one of the most important towers in the game, which if destroyed open up your jungle area to the enemy. And you will have your jungler hate you for life. Not rotating. Mid laners will find it insulting if you call them to support, but without your damage output, it becomes harder for a successful game for your team. So you should try to rotate as much as possible throughout the game to convert the small micros to big rewards in the later stages of the game. Not building properly. Many mid laners plays with the default build and never try to experiment with their build. Situational items like the Necklace of Durance against shield and healing heroes. Fleeting time on heroes with longer ultimate cooldown and Winter Truncheon for survival can help you win more easily. Coming to our last mistake for today, that is not drafting properly. Mages can be used as a very useful tool in the team, so try to outdraft your enemies by taking counter heroes like Lunox, Faramis, Vexana if you find glue in your enemy team. Valentina against a Faramis pick, Eve against a Farsa, and many more. The more you practice, the more you will get better. So that will be all for this video, and I hope these tips help you improve your gameplay. And with that, here are 5 shoutouts from our previous video. Biscuit TV, Nishchal Bestola, Peter Hello, Yorina, and H. Kinney. Thank you guys for watching. Keep supporting Kazuki Official.